in the old Salem Town Hall. Witches, hundreds of them, celebrate Beltane, the arrival of spring, the season of growth and fertility.
Schlandur.
Witches, or pagans as some prefer, now number as many as 200,000 nationwide. They are serious practitioners of this religion, and their ranks are growing. As this picturesque North Shore city commemorates the 300th anniversary of the infamous Salem Witch Trials, it is also coping with its modern witches. Salem has never been shy about touting its witch history. Police cars sport a witch on a broom. Shops and restaurants and the local newspaper promote the witch connection. The high school football team is even called the Witches. Real witches find all this offensive.
The other thing is that we're green-faced hags that have warts, and I've yet to meet anybody that resembles that image at all. It's very insulting to us.
In this tercentenary year, more attention than ever will be focused on Salem and her witches. The city is expecting double the usual number of tourists, says Mayor Neil Harrington.
Who have you heard from? Who's been calling you?
Who hasn't been calling? I've done interviews with radio stations and newspapers and, from all over the globe, literally, Australia, Germany. Well, we hope to get 1 million tourists. We normally get 500,000 or 600,000.
Do the witches attract tourists?
Absolutely. People come to Salem and literally ask, where can I see a witch? And it's probably based upon the caricature of witches and people flying on broomsticks and casting evil spells and things like that. But most of the witches that you see here in Salem are very congenial people, and they fit right in with the fabric of the city.
Tourists may enjoy seeing live witches and shopping in stores that sell everything from crystal balls to love potions. But the mayor and Tercentenary Committee don't want to obscure the historical importance of the witchcraft trials when 20 people died in the hysteria.
Do you believe in witches? Millions of your ancestors did.
300 years ago this spring, Salem Village believed the devil was in its midst as hysterical young girls accused innocent people of worshiping Satan. It began harmlessly enough in the kitchen of the Reverend Samuel Paris.
See there? Can you see the lights in the bowl? Yes.
Tituba, the Reverend Paris' slave from Barbados, secretly amused the village girls with her native magic. But the guilty young Puritans could not keep their secret for long. They soon began exhibiting strange behavior.
What do you hear, child? How do they speak?
That spring, the harvest went unplanted as the entire village watched some of their most upstanding citizens face the young accusers.
I never afflicted no child. Never in my life. Never.
Did you not bring Satan with you? Did you not bid me tempt God and die? How often have you eaten and drank to your own damnation?
Was the devil real to them?
Very real. Very real. He was the enemy of God and therefore the enemy of Christians. But he was always waiting, ready to take your soul if you were willing to give in to him, so that you had to lead a very cautious life. You had to be very firm in your commitment to God.
By the time the panic subsided, 20 innocent women and men had been tried and condemned to death. Witch. To this day, the very word strikes terror into the heart of some. Salem's high priestess, Lori Cabot, says witches are powerful, but they use their power to the good. She says they can change the weather, heal the sick, catch criminals, and cast spells for big things and small.
Drive up to a green light. Just say yes. Why not? Why shouldn't that light be green at the time that I come? Why shouldn't I be in synchronicity with the good things and the easier things of life instead of making them difficult for me?
Lori Cabot says no true witch worships Satan, but plenty of people still think they do.
How do people react to you when they see you? some people will hide their eyes. Because they've heard that if you look into the face of a witch, you know, she'll do something bad to you. If I harm someone and do evil, evil will come into my life, and I will have to live with it. I don't want to. And we raise the cone of power for you, O Sheriff.
Salem's witches complain they are misunderstood. They want the Tercentenary Committee to educate the public about their craft. Others in Salem say modern witchcraft has nothing to do with the innocent Christians who lost their lives 300 years ago because they were wrongly accused. But Salem's witches insist the word witch is as misused today as it was in 1692.
Is cast into the cosmos to do our bidding. It is undone and not broken. So mote it be.
So mote it be.
Coming up next, we'll meet an entire family of witches, and we'll visit sites the tourists...
Great Rhiannon, goddess of the white horse.
The witches of Salem are a diverse lot. In this group are teachers, a graphic artist, a mechanic, and one witch who works for the IRS.
I unite the king and queen of May.
They may practice the craft in covens or as solitaries. The gods and goddesses they worship may be Celtic or Norse. Some practice in robes, some in street dress, others not dressed, or sky-clad as they call it. Their only rule is, do as you will and harm none. If all this seems strange to you in 1992, imagine how terrifying the idea of witchcraft seemed 300 years ago.
Okay, this is Gallows Hill, or one of the two areas, you know, they feel might have been Gallows Hill. There's still speculation as to exactly which hill it took place on, but this is where the executions were held.
Historian Jim McAllister gives popular walking tours of Salem and its historic sites. He brought us to Gallows Hill, where tradition has it the condemned were hanged.
This was an English colony. Under English law, you were hanged. But on the continent, people were burned to death for witchcraft, which certainly was much less humane. But generally, because the accused were supposed to be servants of Satan, they would not get a Christian burial, so they would just cut them down from the scaffold and throw them into a crevice and, you know, cover them over with dirt, and that was supposed to be the best they would deserve.
But the brave family of Rebecca Nurse returned to claim her body, and her secret grave lies somewhere on the Nurse homestead in Danvers. No one knows where.
So Rebecca Nurse could be buried anywhere on this property, Dick?
She could be, but the best guess is that she's buried someplace on the graveyard itself.
Dick Trask has 5 accused witches hanging on his family tree, including Rebecca Nurse and her 2 sisters, portrayed in the film 3 Sovereigns for Sarah. It was from this homestead that the elderly Rebecca was dragged from her sickbed to face her accusers. She refused to lie and say she was a witch, and so was condemned to death.
When I was a kid, I would go, hey, that's a heroic thing, I'd do that too. Now that I'm in my 40s, I've got a house, I've got a family, I look at that and think, my God, if it was just a matter of saying a lie, you know, perhaps I wouldn't be as heroic as they were.
This is the place where it all started in January, February of 1692.
Now the archivist in Danvers, Dick helped unearth the Reverend Parris's parsonage where all the trouble began. The parsonage is one of the authentic sites often overlooked by tourists interested in the witch trials, perhaps because it's in Danvers, which 300 years ago was known as Salem Village. Then, too, Danvers, unlike Salem, didn't like to talk about its witchcraft history.
I can remember as late as 1969 having a school group come to take a look at the excavation, and 2 elderly women across the street shaking their fists and going, why are you talking about this? You shouldn't bring this up anymore. So even in modern times, witchcraft wasn't considered a nice thing to talk about.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Modern-day witches like to talk about their craft, but worry about discrimination. Discrimination, they say, is fed by Hollywood's imagination. No one knows how many witches live in Salem, but Marie and Tony Guerrero just made it 5 more. They moved to Salem from Melrose with their 3 daughters. Both were raised Catholic, but rejected the hierarchical structure of an established church.
I have my altar right here at home, and I feel that when I want to give thanks for something, whether it's a good night's sleep or whether it's something that's good that's happened to me, or I just want to talk with the God and Goddess, that I can light my candles and I can burn my incense and I can truly go into alpha and block out everything else.
I've got a lot more confidence in myself. I'm able to focus myself. I realize that I'll have down moods, but I'm able to use my magic to bring me back up to an even keel.
Tony works in building materials, but would like to open a hairstyling shop in Salem. Marie is a housewife who volunteers at her daughter's school. It was oldest daughter, Melissa, who brought the family to Wiccan. But being a witch, the children have found, isn't always easy.
I mean, I'll be walking down the halls in my school, and I'll be wearing my jacket. I have a Blessed Bee jacket with a pentacle in the back. And everyone's like, oh, you Satan worshiper. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. To us, there is no such thing.
Marie and Tony acknowledge they believe in casting spells and even in fairies.
Are they good forces or bad forces, fairies?
Most of the time, they're innocent forces. They can play tricks on you when they feel like it, but they are good. They're innocent.
Could you put out a spell for a new Mercedes?
I suppose I could. Whether or not it'd be right for me is another story in itself. Personally, I'm not crazy about Mercedes.
Coming up next, witchcraft, harmless or heresy?
The real power behind witchcraft is demonic forces.
We shall return. 300 years after Salem's darkest hour, witches parade brazenly from the Harvard Divinity School through Harvard Yard for a memorial service at First Parish Church in Cambridge. They have come to honor those innocent victims killed in the Salem hysteria, and they feel a connection across the centuries.
What does what happened 300 years ago in Salem have to do with the modern-day witches?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
The Reverend Russell Ely is the most outspoken critic of Salem's witches. He and other evangelical ministers believe witchcraft is dangerous.
The real power behind witchcraft is demonic forces. You are involving yourselves in spirits, which are demons, and they will make their claims on you. You cannot flirt or fraternize with spiritual entities without them having some kind of influence on your life.
We spoke with Reverend Ely at the Wesley United Methodist Church in Salem. Though he no longer has a ministry in the city, he feels God has called him to warn the people of Salem.
The net effect for the city of Salem, if they continue to embrace the witchcraft that is here, either through apathy or deliberately, will be that this will become more and more of an occult stronghold, the effects of which I cannot predict. There's never been a city like Salem, and so we don't have precedent here.
Just a few blocks down from Wesley Methodist, the First Universalist Church welcomes witches into the congregation. The Reverend Marta Flanagan.
We recognize that truth, the answers to why people die, why the world is created, what's the meaning in life, that we can't for sure know the absolute answers to those questions. So we welcome a variety of people in our midst. It is true that somebody who comes to this church who says they're a witch, and there aren't very many, people are taken aback sometimes. But the congregation has really welcomed them.
Artist Jerry Hildebrand is an active member of the church, a former student of Laurie Cabot's, and a witch. She now makes greeting cards for witch holidays like Beltane and Samhain.
I try to look at life with childlike eyes, because when you give up your childlike eyes, then the magic disappears, the miracles disappear.
Have you been discriminated against because you are a witch?
Oh, goodness, I've lost clients from my business. I feel that any time I have to explain who I am, it's not worth it, and it's a form of discrimination.
Perhaps these young children were afflicted by a disease of which I know not.
Throughout the year, Salem has a full calendar of community events to help bring the events of 1692 to life. The real-life Dr. Tony Patton portrayed old Dr. Griggs, who diagnosed the hysterical girls as being under Satan's influence. Dr. Patton is a thoracic surgeon at Salem Hospital.
You're up here on this hill overlooking all this history.
Right.
You look out the window sometimes, look at Gallows Hill and say, there it is.
I do all the time. I look out and see Gallows Hills, and I can see where Dr. Griggs lived. I say to people all the time that it may be more important to know of the origins of your society and to where you came from and to where you belong, may be more important than knowing your cholesterol.
Remarkable as it may seem, Salem is just now building its first memorial to the witch trial victims. Danvers dedicated its new memorial in early May. But the truest memorial is a living one, a lesson in tolerance whose relevance has not dimmed in 3 centuries.
If we look at our own time, Arab bashing, gay bashing, Japanese bashing, the Army McCarthy hearings, we have intolerance around us today as they did then.
I think every time you watch somebody like Lori Cabot walking down the street, you begin thinking, why is she that way? Is she wearing a costume? Is her religion more important to her than it is to me? Do I